views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. Before we begin the content of tonight's program, we need to mention that we were scheduled to have a debate for the Democratic primary in the 81st Assembly District tonight, but that has been canceled for now because one of the candidates, Jessica Altagracia-Woolford, is too ill with COVID to participate even virtually. We've tried to reschedule it, but with little time before the June 28th primary, we're not sure it is going to be possible. Especially, of course, it's impossible to predict when her health will return. If we can schedule individual interviews with incumbent Jeff Dinowitz or even Ms. Altagracia-Woolford, we will. Maybe we can schedule a debate, but for now, those plans are uncertain. Regardless, of course, all of us here at BronxNet wish Ms. Altagracia-Woolford a speedy recovery. For tonight's show, we have two interesting segments for you. The first is about preventing recidivism, and the second is about summer learning loss and making sure our kids make the most of their summertime educationally. So, for the first segment, please join me in welcoming the Deputy CEO of the Fortune Society, is Mr. Stanley Richards. Nice to have you with us, Mr. Richards.
Thank you so much for having me, Gary.
We certainly appreciate your joining us. Now, there's so much to talk about. We need about 2 hours for tonight to deal with this. You were incarcerated in the 80s. We don't necessarily want to go back that far. I can't count how many years that is. But what did you learn and what did you experience that you have taken with you as a former first deputy commissioner of programs and operations at the New York City Department of Corrections and now as a deputy CEO at the Fortune Society?
Well, you know, Gary, I'm a lifelong Bronxite. I was born and raised in Soundview Projects and spent my life cycling in and out of jails. And I thought my life was destined to have those repeated cycles. And during my last incarceration in 1986, where I spent over 2.5 years on Rikers Island getting my case adjudicated, was sentenced to 9 years. When I went to prison, I found education. And I obtained my GED, I went to college, and I realized at that particular point that all of the stories I heard about who I am and what my life opportunities are were all lies, both from the larger society about who I am as a black man in a community raised in poverty. They were all lies. And I realized that the power of my life rested in my hands. And so I committed my life upon my release to helping others to see possibilities in their life, to move from survival mode, because I learned how to survive in prison, I learned how to survive in the street, to move from survival mode into a prosperous, healthy mode. And Fortune Society was the organization that allowed me to walk in that light. And they were the organization that walked the talk. While other organizations were serving formerly incarcerated people, Fortune Society was not only serving them, but providing them an economic opportunity to give back and to build their lives. And so I started at Fortune as a counselor in 1991.
You know what's interesting to me? My next question was going to be, what was like the little germ of a moment that moved you from point A to point B? But you've already said it, that it was the Fortune Society. Before we talk in specifics about their programs and those things, what did you see as commissioner, as a commissioner in the Department of Corrections? Either that you liked and thought was good, or was the whole thing, I mean, you were there, let's see, just a couple of years ago, or was it really like an eye-opening thing like, hey, this can't continue?
It was a sad experience. I mean, I was there, my last time was 1986, right? And what I saw when I went back as first deputy commissioner and the first formerly incarcerated person to be first deputy commissioner of the New York City Department of Correction. My office overlooked the cell where I was housed when I was in solitary confinement on Rikers Island. So what I saw was a continuation of what was experienced, that I experienced back in 1986. And so it was a continuation of seeing hurt. And I've seen how incarcerated people were hurt. I've seen how their families were hurt. I've seen how officers were hurt. And it is a system that just perpetuates isolation. It perpetuates this survival of the fittest. And it perpetuates a sense of hopelessness. The facilities are old. The weapons we recovered were weapons that were made from the facility, not from visits. The rules and regulations are old and outdated. And staff, as much as people incarcerated, were really hopeless. And so when you have a situation where you have hurt people hurt people. And so we have a system where people are really damaged. And what we know, and this is something we have been doing and advocating for at Fortune Society, we know the things that we could do to really help people rebuild their lives. And that's providing housing, providing economic opportunities through employment, providing substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment. And those are all the services that Fortune provides. We see about 9,000 people a year. And what we have been advocating for is we have to do something different. If we want a different result, we have to do something different. We can't treat every situation as if it's a nail and we are the hammer.
You were quoted, and I saw another TV interview that you did. You said that there are institutional barriers to changing the culture and changing the operation of the jail. That, it struck me, and it also scared me, because it's not like, well, okay, let's just fix up the place physically. And that means that there are systemic issues that are getting in the way. We could probably spend a lot of time talking about what those are, but list one or two of them that you say these are the kinds of things we've got to change systemically to fix this.
I think one that jumps out at me, and we hear about it in the news all the time, about how many officers are out sick. The sick leave policy for the Department of Corrections is one that doesn't provide the space for leadership to hold officers accountable and to make sure people are showing up at work. I'll just give you one quick example. If you or I called out sick on our jobs will expect us to be home. We're sick. We're not out. For the Department of Correction, their sick leave policy, they get 4 hours of what's called recreation time. If I call out sick, I'm not going to do recreation. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not. And
I got to tell you, man, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't even want to know who came up with that rule or guideline, but it's a case of a system that's out of control, right?
That's right. And there are hundreds of directives that were written back in the 70s and the 80s that sort of guide the work that happens on Rikers Island and in the Department.
So the federal government had said we're going to take over Rikers, and then very recently, just the other day, a federal judge accepted the city's plan to forestall the federal takeover of Rikers Island. Does that make you happy, or does that make you unhappy? They say their plan takes a harder line on correction officers, as you said, who've called in sick. They have reassigning correctional officers by skill. They claim a reduction in stabbings and slashings and those things since they've began to work on these things. Are you satisfied at the moment that the city has the right idea, or are you cautiously optimistic, or are you saying, no, we need somebody else to come in?
I remain cautiously optimistic, and here's why. For me, this isn't a win-lose situation. If Mayor Adams and Commissioner Molina are able to make the kind of fundamental changes that we need to make, that our officers are safe, that people incarcerated are safe, that family members know that their loved one who's incarcerated is safe, I'm all for that. That is a victory for all of us. If we can continue to reduce the number of people who are cycling through Rikers Island by creating the kind of supports that Fortune and other organizations provide, I am all for that. we need to be aligned that this isn't a win-lose situation. We should be rooting for the win. And I think the plan that Commissioner Molina put forward and some of the steps he has already taken is a step in the right direction. And two, I point out to one, he now has all of the wardens reporting to him. That is a fundamental change in the way that the structure was built out in the Department of Corrections. Two, he seems like all of the chiefs have resigned, and he's bringing in non-uniform civilian leaders, deputy commissioners, to manage some of those processes. And I think those are two huge systemic changes that I think sends a message to everybody that he is serious about change.
That they mean business. You know, although I have to tell you, hearing you talk about it, it's like, wait a minute, that the wardens report to the commissioner, and that's never happened. You guys, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. I mean, it's just horrible. We're getting, let's see, Rikers is closed in 2027. In the jail, we're concerned about Concord Avenue. The communities, I believe, rightly so, are concerned about those jails. Do you believe, number one, it's a good idea? We don't have a lot of time, but number one, it's a good idea. And number two, that the jails won't be intrusive into vulnerable communities?
I think it's a really good idea because we're going to accomplish a couple of things. One, we're shrinking our footprint in terms of mass incarceration and closing generations who have experienced the trauma of Rikers Island and the isolation. So we're now going to have a smaller footprint, and we're bringing those jails into the communities where they have access to their family members, where they have access to the courts and legal, and they have access to social services. And so this is an opportunity for us to make sure we're taking our jails out of sight, out of mind, into a place that they can be held accountable.
And do you think communities are concerned and have a reason to be concerned?
I think communities are concerned, but we need to continue to have a dialogue, because what people are concerned about is usually the spreading of fear about who's going to be incarcerated there and what it's going to do to communities. We have had borough-based jails in New York City for as long as I can remember. When I was incarcerated, we used to have Bronx County that was located right across from the courthouse. We had the Queens Detention Facility. We had Brooklyn Detention Facility. We had Manhattan Detention Facility. So this is not a new concept. What it is a new model where we could use design to create humane spaces for those who have to be detained, and for those who have to work there, to work in a humane facility. So
I just before we run out of time, I wanted to mention that Fortune Society has opened up the Trinity Reverend William James Senior Apartments on Washington Avenue, which is wonderful. But let's wrap this up by talking about the Fortune Society. Who should know about it? Who should contact you? What will help in this whole process before we close Rikers and move to another model?
Well, Fortune Society is a full-service organization. Our only requirement for people that you have criminal justice experience. So if somebody has a family member or a loved one who is about to come home or is home, someone with criminal justice experience need help finding a job, need help with substance abuse, mental health, housing, family reunification. If they have an open court case, they can contact us. The website is www.fortunesociety.org. We have a crisis team, we have services, we do lifetime aftercare, and we are a community of healers. And our work is community safety.
And trying to get people back to where they should be, and maybe they will get inspired like you did by the Fortune Society. Listen, Stanley Richards from the Fortune Society, thank you so much. Thank you for advocating for people of New York City. I mean, these are, let's face it. We really appreciate your time, and we appreciate the Fortune Society. Thank you
so much, Gary.
Folks, so we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about summer learning loss. Maybe you never heard of it. It's happening, and we got to address it. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to Bronx Talk. Especially with the city trying to emerge from COVID, there's a concern about summer learning loss, the cumulative effect that can put a student years behind, which of course can contribute to dropout rates and attendance problems in later years. In fact, summer learning loss has been cited as a major factor in the opportunity gap for many students. As you might expect, experts say that COVID-19 has exacerbated existing inequalities in educational opportunity, that Black and Latino students have been disproportionately impacted. So to review all of this, please join me in welcoming the Regional Director of Horizons NYC. It is Aubrie Therrien. Nice to have you with us, Ms. Therrien.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, I'll be very frank with you. I was not aware that this really was a thing until you and your folks at Horizon brought it to our attention. What is the problem? Why do we have this problem? Why is there this concept of summer learning loss? Explain, put it in a little package for us so we can understand it.
Yeah, summer learning loss has been a contributing problem to the growing achievement gap and opportunity gap in our country for several years, as you rightly pointed out. And basically what it is students who maybe come from under-resourced communities or under-resourced homes, when summer happens, they're not getting any academic attention or support. They're not going to sleepaway camp. They're not participating in resources, and that contributes to something called the learning loss. And we see students lose about 2 months in learning, which is cumulative. So each summer, those students are going back to school having lost another 2 months, another 2 months, another 2 months, until they're years behind their more affluent peers. And this contributes to the high school dropout rate. It contributes to the graduation rate. And it also contributes to the inequities in our country and helping communities who are vulnerable climb up the economic ladder. This problem has only been exacerbated by COVID-19, which we've seen because of virtual learning, students now 60% behind their peers.
You know, this is of great concern to me because, I'm just thinking about the children themselves. If they've been sitting behind a computer for 2 years, I mean, maybe we've had this problem in the past, but if they've been sitting behind a computer for 2 years and now they have 2 months off without stimulating their minds. To me, and I would just share this with you briefly beforehand, part of that, the educational thing for the summer, is those activities that children don't get. Many children don't get. I don't want to say no children get. And so we need more. I mean, that's my own advocacy. We need more of those activities as well. What are the kinds of things that can help? Looking at the expanse of possibilities for children.
Yeah, I mean, the things that can help are summer programs that really exist to combat this issue. And you pointed out, rightly so, the social emotional learning component of school, right? Of being in school, of being with your peers, of forming relationships, especially after 2 years of virtual learning, coming back in that environment, you need support. So I run a program called Horizons, and Horizons' mission is to keep kids on grade level and be able to provide them with the academic and social emotional support to be successful and thrive in school and love learning. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, then let's talk a little bit more about Horizons. And you work within a school. Are these, public schools? Does somebody have to call Horizons and say, hey, I want to participate? Or do they just go to their school or a different, how does the Horizons program work?
Yeah, Horizons is a 6-week summer program, and it's a real intervention program, academic and enrichment opportunities. We provide swimming for all of our kids, math and reading enrichment, as well as arts and music and sports and team building. It is a free program, and it is available to public school students in New York City who qualify for free and reduced school lunch. So we're really focusing on students who come from economically disadvantaged homes or under-resourced communities and don't have access to this kind of support on a regular basis.
Let's talk a little bit about, what kids need and what you're able to provide. I mean, the thought that, I remember sometimes I had to go to take a summer class, sitting in a hot classroom when everybody else was out playing and you could hear the sounds in the schoolyard, outside the window. And you're like, you know what? I got to get out of here. Talk to me about, especially about those enrichment programs. To me, though, especially now when the kids have been sitting, looking at the screen I'm looking at for 2 years, they gotta interact. They gotta, do all those things that you talked about: art and music and sports and swimming. I mean, I'm ready to go. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And Horizons is not summer school. It is a summer enrichment program, and it is fun. It is led by our students and our faculty. Our teachers are amazing. We have a really low turnover rate. Most of our teachers come back year after year after year because they love the program so much. And they tell us this is what school should be. It should be a partnership between students and teachers working together in a project-based way. So we offer our kids in the morning, we do academics, and academics are about projects. So maybe you learn about math through personal finance or the stock market, or teaching our kids about the community or your block radius. And then we learn about reading, and that could be through programs like debate or poetry or writing. Things our students really want to delve into, journalism like you do.
There you go.
And that's how we teach our ELA. And then in the afternoons, we have tons of enrichment programs for our kids, many of whom have these programs cut from their schools because of funding. So we offer music and band, art with Mark Morris dance, which is wonderful. We do theater. We take kids to Broadway shows. We go on field trips to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and we swim. Swimming is such an important part of a program, especially because Black and Brown youth are disproportionately affected by the drowning rate, 3 times higher than their white affluent peers. And we take our kids surfing at the end of the program every year so they can test their swim skills in the open water.
Talk to me about previous to even Horizons or previous to the pandemic. This was a traceable, measurable learning loss that happened during the summer, and then you've already established, but I wouldn't disagree that the pandemic has made it worse. But just talk in general about the fact that we've known about this, and we've always needed to do something about it. Let's put it that way.
Yes, we've known about this for a number of years, 20 plus or more, and researchers and educators have studied this, and it really just plays into the growing inequities in our country, especially, again, what we talked about, contributing to that achievement gap. So summer learning loss is a very big issue, especially in communities who are under-resourced and economically disadvantaged. And this just contributes to that cycle of disproportionate inequities. So that's what we're trying to fix here at Horizons. And I think many programs in the city have now really come on board with that as well. We're seeing Summer Rising, we're seeing the Summer Boost Grant by Bloomberg. Everyone now is taking this really seriously, which they should. And COVID-19 is now exacerbating it into a very large issue.
You mentioned the former Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Apparently he's put some funding toward it. And I wanted to ask you about it. You said the program is free. People say, wait a minute, what's the deal here? Government funded, Michael Bloomberg funded, it's part of the Department of Education. Just how do you put it together so that you can run the program? And how many children do you serve right now?
That's a really great question. So we're unique in that we partner with private institutions. So we're a public-private partnership. So we'll partner with an independent school like Riverdale School, or we'll partner with an Institute of Higher Learning, or at a charter school like Exceed Charter School, and they offer us in-kind space to do the program. So that right there takes a large expense out of the program. And then we're funded by philanthropic foundations, individual donors who really believe in this cause, and the program is 100% free. Now, we did partner with Exceed Charter School, and we're able to get the Bloomberg Boost Grant this summer, which has enabled us to double the amount of kids we've served. So that has been wonderful. We're now serving 450 students throughout the city, which is 50% more than what we were serving 2 years ago. And we hope to expand to at least 1,000 kids in the next 2 years.
Now, you've got, as I understand, one school in the Bronx, but the goal is to expand this. I mean, you mentioned that. What are the goals? Listen, our interest is always the boogie down Bronx. Talk a little bit about plans in our neighborhoods, because what you're saying is music to parents' ears right now, especially parents who know that their children aren't really as productive or active in the summer as they'd like.
Yeah, well, the great thing about Horizons, and I think why it would be such a great fit in the Bronx and across the city, is that we invest in the child for 9 years. It's not just one summer and you're done. So once you're in Horizons, starting in kindergarten, you come back year after year, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, until you graduate in eighth grade. And then we help you get into high school, we help you get into college, and we hire you to work for the program.
Wow.
So I think it really is, it's a wonderful program, and I think it's really critical to the communities in the Bronx. So I'm super happy to partner with Riverdale Country School, and we are looking for new partners in the Bronx as well to expand to serve the students there who are high need. We'd love to partner with institutes of higher learning, charter schools, or independent schools.
You know, maybe I was a little bit negligent. I didn't mention or didn't ask you what ages and what grades you serve. I mean, certainly we know about keeping teenagers off the streets and giving them productive activities, but younger people need it too. Talk to me about the age range that you serve.
Yeah, right now, Traditional Horizons program serves kids K through eighth grade. And again, they come back year after year with the program. They have a spot that's saved. Then after they graduate from eighth grade, again, we help them navigate that high school application process, which is very daunting. And we help them also with our college application process, and then we hire them into the program. So many of our students who are Horizons alumni have gone on to, get amazing jobs, go to amazing schools, but also decided that they want to be educators because of the Horizons program, some of which serve on our board right now.
So let's see, parents, principals, other people involved in schools, if they say, we heard you on Bronx Talk, we want Horizons in our school, we want Horizons for our child, what do they have to do to get it? Let's be quick because we got to go.
Yeah, so they have to contact me. They can go to www.horizonsnewyorkcity.org, and there's a contact us segment. You can just click that, fill that out, and get in touch with me, and we can talk about starting a Horizons at your school next summer.
Aubrie, Therrien, you are providing solutions, and we need solutions, and we thank you, and we thank Horizons NYC. That's what we want to. That's what we want to hear. This is how we're going to deal with this, and this is how we're going to help our kids do better and keep our streets safer. You know, we all know how the trickle down works on that. Thank you so much, and best regards to all our friends at Horizon.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.
Listen, an interesting program today. I hope you learned something. I learned a lot. We thank our producers, our director, Joe, who's working here in the studio. And we'll see you next week for more. Perina Sanchez, the council member, will be our guest next week. Good night.